Start with the end in mind. I think that's great advice for anything you set out to do and applies really well to preparing for actuarial exams. The end in our case is passing an exam. Here is a list of the preliminary exams and their pass marks. These, of course, are subject to change. Let's say you're preparing for MLC. Looking at the chart, you need to get 18 out of 30 questions right. MLC is 3 hours long, so our end goal is simple. Get at least 18 questions right in 3 hours. Building a strategy, we start with the end in mind. Pass the exam. Passing the exam requires us to solve problems, so our previous step is to work problems. Of course, in able to work problems, we have to learn the material. And finally, our exam is on a given date, so we need a schedule to finish all these steps by our exam date. The first step was creating the study schedule. There are two parts to a study schedule. The easy part is creating the schedule. The hard part is sticking to the schedule. I recommend you try to stay a week ahead of schedule because something out of your control is bound to interfere with your studying at some point. Let's build our schedule. The exam takes just 1 day. It will also take just 1 day to create the schedule. I think all students should spend at least 1 month working problems. A month and a half might be even better. This leaves learning the material. This step will vary greatly from student to student. For example, many students learn faster by watching, so if they use an online seminar, they will learn faster than if they used a study manual. My advice is to pick a day to start studying. Determine how long it is to the end of the exam. Subtract 1.5 months for working problems. The rest of the time you can spend learning the material. Of course, you'll be working problems while you're learning the material, but only as many problems as you can without falling behind schedule. Let's put some numbers in here to make this more clear. Let's say today is January 1st, and your exam is on May 31st. Subtracting 1.5 months gives us April 15th. So you have 3.5 months or 15 weeks to learn the material. Let's say you're using the Infinite Actuaries online seminar for 1P. There are 60 lessons, so we need to watch 60 divided by 15 or 4 lessons per week. Now that you have a schedule, the question is, what is the best way to learn the material? The answer is not the same for everyone. You have to find what works best for you. I'll talk about the different ways and the advantages and disadvantages of each. The first way is textbooks. For most students, self-study with just the textbooks is not a good approach. If it was, then colleges would not need to exist. Just give every student graduating from high school a library card and 4 years to study. I think we can agree that most of us learn better with the aid of an instructor. Textbooks are usually written assuming the student will use the textbook as part of a college course, so they can be very useful as a supplemental source. Finally, the practice problems in textbooks are usually not exam style. For example, they are too theoretical or require the use of a spreadsheet to compute the answer. Study manuals solve two of the problems with textbooks. Good manuals are written assuming self-study by the student, and they usually contain exam-style problems. If you learn best by reading, then I recommend that you use them, but many students, myself included, learn best by seeing and hearing. That brings us to live seminars. This is like a college course crammed into 4 to 5 days of intensive instruction. These are usually 1 to 1.5 months before the exam. So they're really more of a way to review the material as opposed to a way to learn the material. They have some great advantages. They are 4 or 5 days of distraction-free learning. No distractions from work and no distractions from your family. Because the entire syllabus is covered in a short period of time, it's a great way to get a better understanding of the bigger picture and how parts of the syllabus fit together. You also get the chance to get immediate feedback from the instructor and to interact with other students preparing for the exam. Live seminars are most effective for students that have already covered most of the material before the live seminar. The disadvantage is that they are expensive due to travel and hotel costs. In my opinion, the last option is the most effective for most students. An online seminar is like taking a college course to prepare for your exam, but even better. You get to choose when and where you study. You also get to watch the lessons as many times as you need. Good online seminars include lessons to learn the material, plenty of practice problems to master the material, and sample exams to practice your exam taking strategy. You can also email your instructor to get help along the way. Be careful, some products are labeled online seminars, but are really nothing more than study manuals distributed weekly with author support. Many students use the online seminar to learn the material and then follow that up with the live seminar to reinforce everything they learned. After we've learned the material, it's time to work problems. It's not enough to be able to work problems. You have to be able to work them in a certain amount of time. For most of the preliminary exams, it's 6 minutes per problem. For most students, the only way to achieve this speed is to work a ton of problems. So you should work every problem you can find. For MLC, my online seminar has over 1,000 practice problems. A student recently asked me how many of those he should work. All of them, of course. Then if you have time, work them all again. Remember, at this point in the process, we're just working problems. We've already covered all the material, so I recommend that you mix the problems up. For example, if you're studying for P, there are 4 main topics. Instead of working all the problems from discrete probability and then working all the problems from calculus review, you should work a few problems from discrete probability, then a few problems from calculus review, then a few problems from continuous distributions, and so on. Once you've gone through all the material, start back over and work a few problems from each section again. This way you're continuously reviewing all the material which you'll be responsible for on the exam. If you miss a problem, then you should set it aside in a special stack of missed problems. Every couple of days, work all the problems in your missed stack. If you miss it again, then put it back into the stack. This will help you focus on the problems that you're struggling with the most. When you start working problems, you'll most likely not be able to solve problems in 6 minutes. That's okay. For each problem, spend at least 20 to 30 minutes trying to figure it out. There's a lot of value in struggling through a problem yourself. As you get closer and closer to the exam, you should see the time it takes you to solve a problem getting smaller and smaller. As you're working the problems, I recommend you refer to formula sheets. I would not recommend referring to a textbook or a study manual. At this point, you should already understand the material. Of course, if there is one type of problem that keeps giving you trouble, then you should refer back to whatever you used to learn the material, or email your instructor if you have that option. Using this approach, you'll naturally memorize the most important formulas for the exam. Then 1 or 2 days before the exam, you can memorize any other formulas that you might need. The last step is to work sample exams. I recommend you take your first practice exam about 2 weeks before the exam. You should work these under exam conditions. That means if you forgot a formula, then it's not okay to take a peek at your notes. The purpose is to practice your exam taking strategy, which we'll talk more about later. Mastering your calculator is one of the best ways to improve your speed in solving problems. Make sure you're taking advantage of all the functions your calculator has to offer. The difference between passing or failing often comes down to a couple of critical decisions by the student. Choosing the right place to study is very important. You need to find a place that is distraction-free so you can focus. For me, that place was at work. At home, I was too tempted to turn on the TV or grab something to eat from the kitchen. Find the place where you are most effective and spend all your study time there. Choosing the best time for you to study is also very important. I study best in the morning, so I would get to work at 5:30 a.m. and study 2.5 hours before work started. Nobody was at work, so there were no distractions. You might study best late at night. It doesn't matter when, it just matters that you find the time that works best for you and then try to do the majority of your studying during that time. One advantage to studying immediately before or after work is studying becomes a part of your workday and you don't feel like studying for exams is ruining your personal life. 6 is not a perfect score. Some people will tell you that if you make anything more than a 6, then you've overstudied. The problem is if you shoot for a 6 and come up a little short, what do you make? A 4 or 5. If you shoot for a 10 and come up a little short, you get an 8 or a 9. Or if you come up a lot short, you still might get that 6. The essence of strategy is choosing what not to do. This quote is perfect for actuarial exam strategy. For the preliminary exams, all questions are worth the same. That means the hardest problem on the exam is worth the same as the easiest problem on the exam. This fact will drive our exam strategy. If the exam was only 2 problems and you only needed to get 1 problem right to pass, which one would you focus on? The easier of the 2 problems, of course, but in my experience, many students focus their efforts on the hard problems. We want to find the easy problems and get those right. We want to avoid the hard problems. For the hardest problems, you likely wouldn't get them right if you had 30 minutes to solve them, much less 6 minutes. So why spend any time on them? Putting these 2 ideas together, we have the triage strategy. After you read a problem, ask yourself, do I know how to work this problem? If the answer is no, then mark the problem as level 3. If the answer is yes, then ask yourself, can I solve it in 6 minutes? If the answer is no, then mark the problem as level 2. If the answer is yes, then this is a level 1 problem and you should work this problem immediately. So each problem is either level 1, 2, or 3. Level 1 are the easiest problems, in other words, the problems that we know how to work and can work them in 6 minutes. So we'll solve those on our first pass through the exam. Only after we've worked all the level 1 problems will we go back and work those level 2 problems, being problems that we know how to work but don't think we can work them in 6 minutes. And then after that, we'll go back and work all the problems that we don't know how to do for whatever reason. Let's see how you might apply this triage strategy when taking CBT exams. This is the Infinite Actuary CBT simulator, which should look exactly like the actual CBT exam. In this example, we're just going to solve 3 problems. So let's click Begin Exam. Whoa! Okay, well, this obviously would be a level 3 problem because the first question is, can I work this problem? And the answer is no, so it's a level 3 problem. So what I'm going to do for my level 3 problems is I'm going to leave them blank. So I'm just going to hit the next button. Okay, this next question looks easy enough. It's evaluate 1 plus 2 plus ... plus 100. Now, I remember there's some formula for the sum of an arithmetic series, but I can't remember it right offhand. I might be able to derive this, but I don't remember the derivation. So I think I can work this problem, but I'm not sure I can do it in 6 minutes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark this problem by hitting the mark button. And now I'll come back to this after I've worked all the level 1 problems. So let's go to the next problem. Okay, here's our last problem. What is 2 plus 2? This I know how to work, and I can obviously work this in 6 minutes, so I'll go ahead and work this problem now. The answer is 4. This illustrates the real travesty. The easiest problem of this exam was the last problem. If you focused all your time on the first 2 problems, you might not even got a chance to read this last problem, and you wouldn't have got it right despite the fact that it was the easiest problem on the exam. Okay, so now we've completed our first pass through the exam. So all I have to do is click Review. Now I can quickly see the level 1 problems were the ones that I've already completed. The level 2 problems are the ones that I've marked. And the level 3 problems are the ones that are incomplete and not marked. So now to review the problems, if I click Review Marked, now I'm just going to cycle through the level 2 problems. So I've gone through the first time, I've worked all the level 1 problems, now I'll click Review Marked. And it takes me straight away to my first level 2 problem. So, oh, I remembered this now, it came back to me. What I do is the first term plus the last term times the number of terms divided by 2, and I think that works out to be 50/50. Okay, so now, once I've gone through all those, now I'm just going to review the ones that are incomplete on my last pass. So I'll click Review Incomplete. That brings me back to this problem. And so now I just have to play around and try to figure it out. I don't think I'm ever going to remember how to do this problem in 30 minutes. I'm too far removed from calculus. So now I just need to guess. Okay, so now our guessing strategy is going to be eliminate any possible answer choices. Well, here I was trying to be funny, and one of the answer choices really, so we'll eliminate that one and we'll go with A, B, C, or D. As someone who creates problems, I'll tell you that the answers tend to go more towards the middle because we try to find the mistakes, and usually the mistakes will adjust one way down, one way up, so the answer choices tend to be B, C, or D. I'm just going to guess, well, why not C? So let's mark C. and then we can finish we'll review one more time. Now we've completed all of our questions, so we can click End Exam, and we only got 2 out of 3 correct. I guessed apparently wrong on this first one. It should have been answer choice A. Okay, but I hope that illustrates the triage strategy for you. That is, ask yourself, can I work it? Can I work it in 6 minutes? If the answer is yes to both of those, level 1. Can I work it but not in 6 minutes? Level 2. And I can't work this problem. That's level 3.